Hi, my name is Jared Mello, and this is an episode of Everything Eccentric. Today, I have a special guest. His name is James Schneider. He's a marketing expert and filmographer, and he's quite an interesting guy, and he's got a lot of good information he's going to share with us about the marketing world and many other things too. But before I get into that, please do check out my book, Radical Self Respect: Avoid Falling for the Same BS. It's on Amazon now. It's great for people that have been struggling with codependency or people pleasing, weak boundaries, or maybe you've just had a breakup, or just overall looking to improve in any area in life. That book would be amazing for you. And one more thing, please remember to support small businesses during this time of need right now. I heard a very troubling stat yesterday that 40% of small businesses are projected to go bankrupt over the next 6 months. And that's a catastrophe, if you ask me. And corporations will no doubt try to swallow up all of these small businesses for pennies on the dollar. So let's hope that either the government gets through to them with some loans or something to keep them going, or 40% of small businesses are going to be gone. So remember, support your local businesses out there. So that includes, for me, Danny Gaudiosi. She has her own makeup business, Makeup and Love LLC. And then there's Nick Schumacher, excuse me. I messed that up the first time too. But he has a windshield repair business where if you have a crack or a dent in your windshield less than 6 inches, he's your man to go to. And this is in the New Jersey and Delaware area. So I know our guest today, James, is from Texas, right?
I'm actually originally from New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, I live in Texas now, but I moved all over Vegas, California, New Mexico. Now I'm in Texas, but no, I'm born and raised New Jersey.
That's cool. And there's Hainesport, New Jersey. That's where you're brought up?
Yep. Yep.
Awesome,
hmm
awesome. And so what started your journey to all of those different states here in the direction you went in?
Yeah, I know it's kind of a convoluted path, but um, man, if I had to take it way back, I've always been drawn to more of the creative space. And God, if I'm trying to think where's a good place to start, but after high school, went to college, did about a year and a half, and it just didn't really resonate with me. I just didn't really understand why I was going. It wasn't taking me where I wanted to be. So I stopped. I stopped going. I was paying for it, so it was expensive, and especially when you don't know why you're going, other than you're supposed to go to college. And so I stopped doing it. And but in that time, I was interning for a designer in New York because I wanted to be in the fashion industry. And so I was interning with him, and then from there, I ended up starting my own clothing line. That was, took out a loan, made the clothes, sold them, and I learned a lot from it. I didn't know what I was doing. I was literally learning as I was doing, and it was really good. I mean, at the end of the day, I probably broke even, so I didn't lose a lot of money, but definitely didn't make any money. But I did learn a lot, and that was the most important thing. That was probably my college, if anything. It was my first venture into entrepreneurship. That was like in my early 20s. Then from there, I started to slowly get into photography, and eventually I had a blog, and this guy saw it on Facebook who owned a magazine in New York, and he wanted me to start doing hotel reviews because I did a lot of traveling and I would just document my travels. That was literally it with photography and writing. So he's like, I'd love for you to do some hotel reviews here in New York. So I started doing that. And then I started doing car reviews. So I started doing automotive journalism where they give you a Nissan GTR for a week. You drive it, you take pictures of it, and you write about your experience with the car. So I started doing that, and then I started doing ride and drives where you're flying out to. I went to Atlanta to test drive an Aston Martin and drive it on a racetrack. You know
That
what I
sounds
mean?
interesting.
It is, because and it's weird at the same time because a lot of the guys so they fly out a bunch of journalists at a time when they do this. So they have like 4 waves of journalists, and it might be 30 journalists that are all from either websites or actually like print magazines. And most of these guys are full-time journalists. This is what they do for a living. At the time, I worked at a casino, Parks Casino, if you know
I
what
know
that
the
is.
place.
So
Absolutely.
I worked there, and then I would have to take off work to go on this ride and drive, which is about 2 days. So it's like all these other guys, these are seasoned vets in that journalism field. And I'm just like, I work at a casino. This is what I do. But I loved photography. I loved writing. So it was a dream for me to do it. I didn't care. I was meeting so many really interesting people. And they put you at the Mandarin Oriental, hotel in Atlanta. It's like, it's crazy, and then
And
I
you didn't
did
have a journalism degree at this time, did you?
no degree,
No
nothing.
degree. And that part's interesting to me too, because you sounds like you're going on these adventures here and didn't have the degree to do it. You just kind of just use your networking skills, etc., to become a part of it.
I'll be honest, Jared. It's a lot of doing and showing, and
Okay.
school's great. I think depending on what you want to do, some fields require a degree. You don't want someone operating on you without a degree, right? You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? So there's certain ones that just you have to have a degree. But I think in other instances, I don't think I need someone to have a degree to work on my car. If you've worked on cars your whole life, I trust you to work on my car. Do you know what I mean? So I think it was just doing the work, and people would see me do the work. And
I think
then
you're making a good point right now because I was going to ask like about school in general, what your thoughts are about that. Because to me, school right now, unless you're going to go do something that you specifically need a degree for, so you can't be a lawyer without going to law school. You can't be an accountant really without going to college to be an accountant. You can't be a nurse. You can't be a doctor. But they're kind of like the skilled labor positions of the college world. Like you get your degree and then you can go do that skill. But I think there's a lot of degrees right now that are just, for lack of a better word, expensive receipts where, they say they help you learn how to think. And I think that might even be up for debate anymore in today's college world. But it's like, I think people really need to be cognizant and aware of what they're going to school for and how they're going to pay for it.
for sure, especially the college in itself is a business. So, they want you to get a degree, even if you're going to do sculpting. They just want you, if you're going to do oil painting, it's like you can paint yourself, and figure it out. I always tell people I went to the University of YouTube. Between marketing and video production, editing, it's everything I've learned is watching other YouTube videos and how to do it. And then I go do it and I test that theory that I just learned to see if it works in real life. But I'm always, I guess, more perplexed about real life skills that are not taught, like how taxes work, how credit works, how does debt work. If you did the math, how long is it going to take you to pay off this college debt versus the interest that's on it? And no one talks to you about that kind of stuff. There's really well-paid doctors that take 10 years to pay off their student loans.
Right.
By the time they pay them off, they're old, and they started going when they were in their early 20s. It's crazy. So I just think it's overly expensive for no reason, especially, even if you went to a county college, how expensive books are for no reason. It's just like, and not everyone can afford it and things like that. But I think, like you were saying, I think a lot of people need to be self-aware in the beginning to know if they should even be going, period.
Well, that's it. And I think students, what are they really? Students are customers. And customers ultimately have the power if they will only recognize they have it. And I've been saying recently that if enough people decided to do different things, or enough people went okay, I know I need to go to community college for 2 years and then go get a bachelor's degree, transfer, and do it like as cheaply and as effectively as possible, they would have to start making these classes go down in cost, is what I would think. And they do a lot of things under the guise of prerequisites, but I think K through 12 is your prerequisites, in my opinion. You should go straight to your junior year in many of these cases.
Absolutely. No, definitely. I went to which was cool, and I'm glad I did. I went to a tech school for high school. So half your day was just your trade. It wasn't all academic. Maybe your morning was math and English, but then your afternoon was just working on cars if that's what you did. And I thought that was great because not everyone is going to go to college. So as
Absolutely.
soon as you left high school, you were able to go get a job working on cars. And then if you wanted to take it further from there and get some sort of certificate on just working on Mercedes, you know what I mean? Then you could go do that and further your degree or working on Porsches or whatever. But you were able to make money right out of the gate, because you already were learning while you were in high school. So, and just like you said, yeah, the prerequisite thing, it's just it's another way just to make money. And yeah, just going back to what we were saying, just kind of being, I think there's this slow delay with when our parents were going and our parents were going to college. That's what made you stand apart. Not everyone had college degrees back then. So if you had one, that made you that really separated you in the workforce. But now it's not everyone's got a college degree. You know what I mean? Not everybody, but most people do, to the where it's not effective. And now you got people that are getting master's degrees and PhDs, and they're working at Starbucks. You know what I mean? Because it's so saturated now with people having degrees. Now it's like, even after you have the degree, you still got to start entry level because you still actually haven't done anything. Yes, you have a degree, you know the knowledge, but it's real life, experience in the field doing it. They still want to see that from you before they're.
That's the interesting thing about you, though, is that Lee was saying to me that you are really a self-starter and you self-taught yourself everything that you know, and you have this like can-do attitude where you just throw yourself into the fire, and you may not know exactly how to do it, but you look into YouTube, you learn about it, and then you go do it. That's the part that is really interesting to me. So it's like, do you think someone can teach someone that kind of mindset? Or do you think it's more of just like how you were raised, or you were born with it, or what do you think? Because I think it's so important to have that. Like, it's something that a lot of people just don't have.
Yeah, Jared, I guess I can only speak from personal experience, and I can tell you that you get to a certain point. It's funny, man, because living all over the country, you see how different people operate, move. Jersey is definitely part of. I always feel like that's a competitive advantage being from New Jersey. So that's a little bit part of it. It makes you very competitive. That East Coast mentality.
Right.
You hustle harder. I've met some of the nicest people in New Mexico and California, but they just don't have that aggressiveness we have from New Jersey. It's just different. You'll do whatever it takes. But there's pros and cons to it, because I feel like on the East Coast, it's more about materialism. What kind of car are you driving? What house do you live in? What zip code are you in? Where like in New Mexico, for sure, they don't really care as much about materialism, but they don't hustle as hard.
Right.
So there's you can take something from both. For me, as far as taking action, I just got to a certain point in my life where I was like, what do I have to lose if I don't? You know what I mean? It's like, take the action and see what happens. Like what bad could happen from it? Someone's going to judge me that I did it, that something messed up. They're not doing it at all. I'm going to be judged by someone you're always going to be judged by people that are not doing.
Yes.
The hustlers understand what you're doing. They're not going to make fun of you because they've done it or they're doing it. It's always
Absolutely.
the people, what do they call the sharpest pencils are the ones that aren't used, because they've never done anything. So they're always going to be able to tell you how to do it better or this and that, but they've never done it. So once you kind of clear out being judged, once you don't care anymore about what people think of you, you're so much more free to take action.
And a lot of that to me is just being afraid to make mistakes in front of others, or being afraid to try something new. And people get embarrassed. And that's why they say the people who are the most okay being uncomfortable in front of others, those are the ones that grow the fastest. And so, circling back to your story, though, being the journalist going to travel to what would you call them? Like car shows is what they were?
For when I did the automotive journalism?
Yes.
So those were called ride and drives, and so they would fly
Okay.
you out to different locations where they were going to have these different events for the journalists. So, I think one of the coolest ones I went to was one in Newport Beach. It was a 3-day thing, and they took over a what do you call it? Airport, and it was a racetrack that they made it into for the race cars. Then they had a whole like this whole area was all these like giant dirt mounds for the trucks. Like they even had right hand drive Japanese cars because we're on private property, so you can just drive these right side driver cars from Japan. It was for Nissan and Infiniti. That was just insane. I was driven in the Nissan GTR GT3, which is their race car. There, it was just cool. It was a really cool event, and they want you to talk about it. That was the whole point of the whole event, is that they want you to write about it and talk about all the different things. So yeah, that was really influential to me. And that's from there I moved to Vegas, and because I was in the casino industry, so I was like, okay, I can move and have a job in Vegas, and I wanted to start my own online magazine. So moved there, and unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, in retrospect, I can look at it that it was a blessing, but I got laid off about 3 months into being in Vegas. It was the SLS casino just opened. I got the job, and they laid off. I forget, it was like 10% of their staff in the first 90 days, and then it just went. They just kept laying off another 10 and 10, 10. So
Wow.
it was just a bad business model from the get go. I mean, it was a ghost town when I got there. It is what it is, but that I ended up moving from there. Well, I worked for a magazine there. So while I was there, I was first time in my life I was on unemployment, and I interned for a magazine in Vegas, and I still had my car connection. So I was doing, I was getting the test cars while I lived in Vegas. I would go pick them up in LA. So I would drive my car out there, and my friend lived in California, and so I would stay with him and test drive the car for a week, and then drop it back off. Where it was usually they're all in Long Beach, you go pick up the car. So I go out there and do that, and that's when I just started working on my own stuff, and then I was still doing the ride and drives and getting test cars and stuff like that. But I was getting deeper into what I wanted to do and not working at a casino or doing something I didn't care about. So it was really cool. And then I was actually making money off. So after my internship ended, they wanted me to keep doing the car reviews for the magazine, because it was like a lifestyle magazine. So they did travel stuff too. They did, since it's Vegas, they would interview like I'm trying to think, like Diplo or DJ Snake on the cover, like, because they're in Vegas. So they would come in there and actually interview the DJs or musicians and stuff like that, and then they would have travel, and so I did the automotive part of it, and so it was cool. And that was my first time really starting to learn how to negotiate with a client, because I was really freelance. I wasn't an employee of the magazine, and that was like my first time negotiating what I was going to get paid for that. And
What did you learn doing that part, the negotiation part? What did you learn about negotiations in that?
First off, most clients have way more money than they say they do. That's first and foremost. But outside of that, and later on, I learned more about it. But you have to understand what value you bring to the table to accurately price your service.
Right.
So that's the only thing that gives you leverage is, are you valuable? And I think when people price things, even people that are freelance, they go back to an employee mindset where they're like, well, I worked 4 hours, 5 hours on this, so I'm going to give you an hourly rate. And it's like, you don't get paid for your time. You get paid for your value. It doesn't matter that, okay, if you took 4 hours, maybe you're just really slow. But the end result could have been done in an hour or 4 hours. What's the end product? And how does that bring the client money?
So explain to me this, because I agree with you with what you're saying right now. But you mentioned the employee mindset. What do you think the employee mindset is versus the more entrepreneurial or abundance mindset, or whatever you want to call it, like the mindset that you have now?
Sure. So, it's funny. So in the past 2 years, I worked with a a media company in New Mexico, and they have a team of shooters and editors, and those are employees of that media company.
Right.
And then they had me as a contractor where I would edit the stuff they couldn't edit because they just had too much work. So they're like, hey, James, can you edit? Eventually I negotiated a deal where I would do 10 videos a month for them, where I would edit these videos for them. And I would get the videos back faster than the team, me, myself. Because, and that's not like a mystery, it's because they're employees. I'm done at 5:00. I'll worry about it tomorrow. When you get there, they're still getting paid the same amount of money if they get 10 videos done a day or one.
So it's a value proposition, being more efficient. You're being more efficient than the hourly employees. And you learned all on your own how to do these editing anyway? You learned from like YouTube or something? Or how'd you learn?
Through YouTube.
Okay.
And, in the beginning, I was super slow. I was not that good at it, but my shooting wasn't that good either. So, they kind of got better over time together, but because, it's a lot easier to edit if you're shooting to edit, where that's something you don't think about when you first start out. You're just shooting anything. And then you're like, God, this is all so awful, but anyway, yeah, it was just learning. It was a long process, but I think when I started working, especially for that media company where, like I said, they were giving me 10 videos to edit a month. And then on top of that, they would have shoots for me to go on that they couldn't go on. So I would go shoot it. And that pressure, and I think this kind of goes back to what you were asking me before about what made me go and take action. And I think that human nature, we want to be in a state of comfort. We want to make sure that we have enough food, and naturally your body doesn't want to go into an uncomfortable situation. So you're going to avoid uncomfortable situations at all costs. But we all need pressure to become great. And you got to put yourself in uncomfortable situations on purpose. And it's always better when you do it on purpose than when you're forced into them. So I did a lot of speaking engagements, and I'm naturally an introvert, and I had to force myself to do public speaking and not care. And so I signed up for these things where they asked me first. My first one they asked me to do, and then after that I was like, hey, I'll do this one, or these guys are looking for someone to teach this class about photography. Yep, I'll do it. Like, they're going to pay me. I don't care about the money. Teachers don't get paid a lot of money. So I didn't do it for the money. I did it for marketing. When they think about, I taught at this university, even though I never went to graduate college, I taught at a university as an adjunct professor about this topic. They're going to associate my name with my business and that I'm an expert in that field.
Mm. I think what you're mentioning here is so important to let people know that it's possible to do things even without all the proper credentials, even without degrees. You can be a teacher and an adjunct professor without being having a degree. These things are so important. I think it's because you have a different theory to life, where especially now more than ever, employees just get screwed. Employers are getting less benefits, fewer raises. They're getting really squeezed for everything they're worth. But when you think of it more as, let's put aside that employee model and let's think, how can we actually get things done? How can we actually look at the big picture and get more value out there? And that's how you were able to beat the employees in that business, because you're able to get more done. But it's because you have a different mindset. And I think you're seeing it everywhere. And this is something that YouTube and the internet, social media, as bringing to the surface, really, right? It's all of these opportunities to do things on our own, as opposed to just having to wait for a paycheck from an employer. And all too often, people, you can get laid off. Ultimately, your financial life is out of your control when you're an employee. You could always lose it. And it's like Warren Buffett says, he wants everyone to have multiple sources of income, preferably 5 or 6. And the other thing you were saying was about getting uncomfortable. Tim Ferriss always says that the more uncomfortable things you put yourself into willingly, the less uncomfortable situations you'll be put in unwillingly. So the more you tackle it and the more you tackle things, the less pain and uncomfort is going to come to you against your will. But if you go at it with your will, like intentionally, I'm going to make myself uncomfortable. I'm going to force myself to grow. Life is going to give you fewer like boom pop moments where like it just knocks you down. And I think that's really cool. And it's exactly what you're just mentioning.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think I've already been conditioned through. I did 10 years of wrestling, and it's one of the hardest sports I've ever done, hands down. And so training for that, and you know, I remember I really sucked at it when I first started, and my dad trained me. My dad would hire ex-state champions to come over our house and wrestle me. And these are at this point they're grown men. They've already graduated high school. They're doing like a construction job. So they come over, they smell like cigarettes and beer, but they're still really good at what they do. And I'm like
Right.
16. You know what I mean? And they're just like just totally just dominating me. And then but then after doing
That's
that,
how you get better.
yeah, I go out and I wrestle another guy my weight and my age. I'm dominating him. You know what I mean? So it was. I think that definitely helped a lot. But going back to putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, um, Jared, I think that especially what happened in 2008, what's happening now. If you were like, I just want a steady paycheck. I just want to be able to, always have money and not worry about, money. Then I'm just going to work this job that's safe. And I think people are starting to understand that they're not safe. And I know I've seen so many people that I know personally that have bought houses in that window of 2008 and now, when the real estate market was so inflated, and really our economy was really an illusion, and it's all coming back now, and it's like all these guys that are I'm sure hard workers, all these employees that are just trying to do the right thing, they're seeing that like, man, I'm getting screwed over again. This did not happen too long ago. And you look at businesses like Shake Shack and these other big businesses that got these loans, and I know they gave them back, but why did they get them in the first place when, Bob's Pizza Shop or Nancy's hair salon, they're not getting the money. They're not getting what they should
I
be
actually
getting.
blame the banks for that actually because
Same.
I think like how did the corporations even have an opportunity to apply for that money? Because I'm guessing this is how it went down. The federal government, gives out this money and gives it to banks and says, "Here you are. This is the money that should be for corporations and should be for small businesses." And they let corporations kind of overstep their bounds, I think, and apply for this money that should have gone to the other places. And the banks should have had the foresight to stop that. I and I guess they didn't.
The banks are going to work with their biggest clients. You know what I mean? Which are going to be these corporations. They don't care about the small businesses. It doesn't make a dent in their business. So from that aspect, I see it, but it should have been regulated who actually needs it. If you make 25, 30K a year, then a stimulus check is great. It's the biggest check you ever seen in your life. But
Right.
if you were a middle class worker or you're a small business, $1,200 is a drop in the bucket. What does that do? Pays rent maybe 1 month, maybe, rent or your mortgage or whatever. But after that, then what? You know what I
Small
mean?
businesses are a thorn in the bank's side, really, because they actually need the money. The small businesses actually need it. Like they know the corporations will pay and they have more money to give. And so like business wise, they don't like it. They think, oh no, I actually got to like give money to these small businesses. I got to help them more. And I think it's just not a good incentive.
It wasn't handled right. I don't think the government should have handled it directly and kept the banks out of it, because the banks have a vested interest. They're biased,
Absolutely.
So yeah, it sucks, and I think going back to talking about entrepreneurship and employee mindset and stuff like that, my mindset has grown, tenfold since I've been a full-time entrepreneur, because your main function is really problem solving. It's not what you do for a business. It's not owning a pizza shop or an auto repair shop. It's problem solving all the time. You're figuring out, how do you have enough employees to handle the workflow? Do you have enough reserve money for the next month? Where am I going to get the money from? So you're always problem solving. And, when you're an employee, which I always thought was crazy, is that if you apply for a house or a car, they always go off your how much you make before taxes. That's what they base if you can afford something.
Right.
That's not what you take home.
Right.
So I always thought that was a trap for most employees, right? And then when you're an entrepreneur, your money is based on how hard you're going to hustle. So I'm used to being able to find money in literally thin air. If I need another 5K, I know it's out there. I just have to go and make enough phone calls or emails. But there's a client out there that will give me the 5K I need. Of course, it'll come with a project. They're not just giving me money, but I know someone has that money out there. Where if you're an employee, you just make what you make. Or you can get a second job, but that doesn't do much, especially not in the interim.
What are your thoughts on credit scores right now? Do you think they're really necessary to have good credit scores? Because I have my own thoughts about this too.
Yeah,
Because my thought is that all a credit score proves is that you're good at borrowing money and going into debt. And I don't think that's like a proper thing to be striving for. It's like, I'd rather be striving for, I don't need to be borrowing money. I already have it. Why should I be so indebted to the banks and to the credit card companies and to a mortgage or to a car payment? It's like, I'd rather just have the money.
Why does your credit score go down when you pay off a card and close it out?
Because they want you in debt. You got to think about what people want, right? And you know this.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what do you think about the credit score stuff?
No, it's obviously a system that's set up, they want you over leveraged because you're not going to do anything too crazy. They don't want you to have that mobility of being debt free and being able to do things. They want you to just be a good worker bee and buy your toys so you have a lot of debt and you make sure you go to work, right? And so, I haven't paid for anything in credit in years. I don't know, at least 5 years. If I can't afford it with cash, I just don't buy it. So it is what it is. Of course, it's slower. I mean, every piece of equipment that I use for video production is all bought in cash, or if I need it for a project and I don't have it, then I just put it into the invoice. So if I need that higher resolution camera or a new drone, then it just goes in there and I'm using it for the project, but now I have it now versus just buying it and maybe I'll use it.
So at this very moment, what are all the feathers in your cap right now of all like the income streams that you have? So you have, I'll let you decide what are the streams you have if you feel comfortable saying them.
No. So I guess, I would say probably a year and a half ago, I would say I could definitely tell you what was like our main source. But at this point, it's been a very interesting watching the things start to shift. And so I'll tell you where we started and then how it kind of splintered out.
Okay.
So
that's exactly what I want to hear.
Okay. So that's easier way to explain it. So when we first started, we were just doing literally video production. So if you were a business, every business needs a video business card explaining who you are and what you do. Because if no one knows who you are, people buy from who they know and trust. So if no one knows who you are, they're not going to buy from you. Doesn't matter what you do, right? And so we would do video business cards. We would do promotional videos. Some of promotional videos I consider more of like no one's talking. It's just music and showing something. Where video business card is either the owner or someone that represents the business talking. And then there's B-roll over top of it showing what they're talking about. So we started with that. But what's funny is that, so before we did this, we had a YouTube channel. When I say we, it's me and my girlfriend run our business. And so we had a travel YouTube channel. And I was learning everything I could on how to market my videos, how to get eyes on them. Right? It was not a business yet, but everything I learned, I would test it out. I was able to use that information with my clients and how to get eyes on the videos I made for them. So I know a lot of guys that are amazing filmmakers. They know nothing about marketing. They just make a video for you, which is fine. But who are you going to go with? Someone that is going to just give you the video and be like, here you go. I don't know what to tell you or what to do with it, but here's your video. Or because the video is only as profitable as it does its main function, which is be seen. So I get you a video, and now I'm going to explain to you how we're going to execute this campaign so people actually see the video and are
Right.
emotionally engaged in it and take action on it and all that stuff. So there's the marketing part of it. Some people just want consulting on their video, or I'm sorry, on their business as far as what do I need to do in social media. So we have the video part of it. We have the consulting part of it, which is, like I said, maybe it's just running ads. Maybe they're great at filming themselves and they don't need anything real high production. They shoot with their cell phone. Maybe you're a real estate agent. You're just giving market updates on what's going on in your area.
Right.
That's totally
So
fine.
to stop you there real quick. So this is like the marketing and the SEO wing of your business.
Yep.
Right? And you sometimes use this wing to help other people in their business. But it is also like a skill of yours. And when you learn this skill, you just learn from trial and error. Like, how did you learn what works, what didn't work, what was the best way to go?
That's it.
Still YouTube?
That's it. Yeah. So it was YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Those are the main ones, in my opinion, that actually matter as far as marketing. And it was testing things out on our own accounts to see if they worked. Excuse me. And then if we knew something was consistent, had consistency to it, then we would apply that. Because I'm not going to do something with a client and I don't know if it works. I'm going to look stupid.
Right.
So I need to know that this has, every single time you do it, it works. And I know Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, their algorithms change. And they favored certain types of content or how you put out the content, the delivery of the content. So I have to stay on top of that. So there's a multitude of people that I watch that kind of give me indicators of what's about to change and how I need to do more experimenting. Because just because Bob Smith on YouTube says that this is how it works, I need to go test it for myself. So
right.
People might be following me on Facebook or YouTube and be like, this doesn't make any sense why he's putting this out, but I'm testing something.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So I don't really care what anyone thinks. I test stuff out, I put it out, see if it works, and then I know it's going to work for the client.
So the product or service your business actually has, is it the actual marketing that's your essential service, or do you have something else that you're marketing yourself for?
Like what we offer?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the video. It's the actual knowledge and expertise of marketing, how to get that video to be seen. But then on top of that, Jared, what I was going to say next, so I would say in the past year and a half, we started getting into doing influencer marketing. And that's when we started working with brands through Instagram that either it's a workout outfit or it's a protein bar, or we just did one about a month ago for GoDaddy, and they wanted to put out a message for small business owners. And, that it's kind of going to segue into what I'd love to talk about next is personal branding and how important it is. And it'll actually relate a lot to employees, because you don't have to be an entrepreneur to have for personal branding to be important. You can be an employee and it still matters a lot. In my opinion, it's the new resume. But going back to the influencer marketing, it started out really slow. Our following was okay at the time, but it started to grow. The more brands we worked with, we would get reposted by them with their following. So our following would get bigger, and then we just kept working with them, and we started to up the rates that we were working with each one of these brands. And then of course we're a couple, so sometimes they would give us both an influencer deal for the same campaign, or they would just combine it, but it would be much higher than if it was just one of us. So it definitely helped, both of us doing this. Carla shoots me, I shoot her, and getting comfortable talking on camera, which I was, really nervous in the beginning. I would literally have to get drunk and then talk. And, and then now I don't care. But in the beginning,
It becomes second nature eventually.
You just do it enough times.
You forget it. And that's the lesson for everything, right? And I actually wanted to mention to you, like, all these kids that have humongous followings on Instagram or YouTube. Like, there was a little 9-year-old girl that showed me, Brent and Lexi. Between the two of them, they got like 25 million followers on Instagram. Like, the guy's got 19 million, she's got 6.1 million. It's like, how the heck did they get to where they are? Like, they're attractive people, so like YouTube algorithm favors them, and then they just do silly things that aren't really controversial, so they just blow up with the kids. And like, there's so much marketing influence that someone who's 18, 19 years old has right now. It's insane, really.
You said this was on YouTube?
Yeah, so I forget the name of their show, but they're brothers, they're twins, Brent and Lexi. And I just discovered these people like 2 weeks ago. But I looked at it and I was like, oh my lord, this is where everyone is? Like, this is where 18 million people are following this guy that they're just doing like silly skits where they'll have like pop songs of the day and there's kind of like a little skit about it. It's just like a little corny comedy routine, kind of. And
Yeah.
they have like their friends in it, they're all in on it. And I mean, they hardly even notice, probably, or recognize or appreciate how much like influence they actually have. They just don't even. They're not even aware of it, really. But they have more influence than so many people.
Well, you know what? I mean, we were just talking about this, me and Carla. We were talking about your following versus your influence. So they're not the same. And
I
so
agree.
just because people watch them, they might be entertained by them, but they might not know any. Now, the people you're talking about, I know nothing about them, so I can't really talk to them about them. But we know a lot like people on Instagram and YouTube too. You could have the girl that has 5 million followers that does makeup tutorials, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe she can influence you to buy a different eyeshadow, but you don't know anything about her.
Right.
If she doesn't tell you anything personal, she's not vulnerable, she doesn't open up about how I got into makeup, or maybe I had a shitty childhood. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't know anything about them, so you're not going to be that emotionally connected to them. You're just going to think about makeup, and then that's it. And then think about, I should check out how to do a new foundation on my face. That's it. But you could have more influence at a smaller following, especially if it's in a niche. If you're just teaching people how to shoot guns, if you're just teaching people how to bake cakes, right? But you only have 10,000 followers, 5,000 followers on Instagram, but you really go deep with why I bake this cake, because my grandmother that came over from Poland, she taught me how to do it. And she taught me when I was 8 years old, and it meant so much to me. You're giving them context to you personally. That's going to be much more influential than the guy that has, 500,000 followers. He just posts pictures of him sitting on his car, but you know nothing about him at all. He writes a 3-word caption. It's like, I don't even know who this guy is.
You subscribe to the 1,000 true fans model, then, where, like, if you get really 1,000 true raving fans of yours that actually really like you and they think they know you, and that's what those two kids, Brent and Lexi, that is what they have going for them, because they have people, they're obsessed with them. And they're not just selling something, like, they let them into their whole lives. They follow their dating lives, they follow their brother sister squabbling, sibling rivalries, and like, they want to be part of their family. They want to be included in their little friend group. And so I think they have, not only do they have a huge following, they have a huge amount of influence too, because they have that vulnerability. They've let people in. And people think they know them. Like, oh, that's guy, I'd be his friend if I saw him in the street. Or I could see him being part of my own high school. And they have just raving fans that just, they want to be with them. They want to know about them, know everything about them. And if they ever were to do products, I'm sure they'd blow up, because these kids that are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, they're going to say, hey, tell mom and dad, let's buy this. And they probably would.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it depends on what they're doing. Like I said, I'd have to check these guys out and see what their angle is, I guess, as far as what they want to put out there. But if they are personable and they're doing all those things, then, and some of it too, I've noticed with YouTube, and if you're familiar with Twitch, so, timing is a big part of it. I know a lot of people that blew up just off of Fortnite because they just started playing it when Fortnite came out. But if they were playing Call of Duty before that, it was already a saturated market. But as soon as Fortnite came out and you are one of the first people playing it and you're actually good at it, and then in retrospect, you're actually mediocre, but you were just one of the first people playing it on Twitch, that will blow up your following it. You know what I mean? And then you can
blue ocean strategy.
Exactly.
So your perspective on those kinds of people would be really fascinating to me because you have a different way of thinking about it. So you would see some of these people with a huge following and or influence, and you would break it down in a really interesting way. I think, like, oh, all right, they got this vulnerability thing going for them. They got the Raven fan thing going for them. They got guy next door thing, and I think that'd be pretty cool. And so, like, the way you break down, whether it's like someone's Instagram account or someone's YouTube channel, is like, what are the things you look at, and what do you see? Like, how does your mind work with it?
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, I think it's what's your takeaway when you're consuming their content? Are you feeling anything? Because everything is emotions. Everything is your feelings. You know, I don't care. I don't care what decision you make. You're always making an emotional decision, even if you tell yourself you're not. Your bias towards one brand or another has to do with something psychologically. Mm. It's not just because they make stuff better. It's right. It's because you had an experience with it being better, and it gave you a good feeling. But it all goes back to feeling. So going back to content creators, when you consume their content, how's it making you feel? What is your takeaway from it? And it's really going to be coming down to if it matches your energy. So there's some content creators are on the negative side. They like really talking bad about stuff. And if that's how you're feeling, you're going to align with that. But if you like the guy that's positive and never talks about negative things, you're going to go more with him. So that's what it comes down to. And then the two things is you're either going to educate people or entertain them, or both at the same time. So how good are they doing a job of entertaining or educating? Because you need a takeaway.
Yeah, this is true. And I think it's like the old expression, information without emotion is not stored, which is why everyone knows exactly where they were when 9/11 happened. Why do you know exactly where you were?
Yeah.
When that day happened. And everyone does who is alive. They all know. Where were you? Yep. I know exactly where I was.
Yep.
And that's the lesson of that to me, is that part where we all know where we were because of the emotion that it prompted in us.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's one guy that I listen to and for like video tutorials, how to use a new preset or how to color grade, stuff like that. And I like him a lot. He's very technical, but he has like a very monotone voice, and that's just how he does it. I don't think he's very rarely on video too. It's just him showing you his screen as he does stuff. This other guy is super animated, very upbeat, and he's not the best teacher because later on I got to go and do some more digging because I'm like, that did not work at all. How he definitely, he skipped some steps, but he's entertaining. And you're still learning a concept, and then maybe I have to go do some more due diligence to really learn it. But like you said, you have an emotional feeling after watching it because of his energy.
You also just made me think about, in terms of what's the message or the energy of the content creators. It's like all the people that gravitate towards MGTOW channels or red pill channels, or in other cases like maybe feminist channels. It's like the guys who have been jaded by women, they're going to gravitate towards the slightly edgier red pill, or in the more extreme cases like the MGTOW monk people who just say we're leaving the reservation and we're not going to be dealing with women at all. But that's what when you mentioned it, I was like, yeah, that's exactly what you get when you listen to that channel. You get, we're mad. We're mad at the way things are, and we're not happy. And so when people have been hurt, they've experienced some trauma of some sort, and then they gravitate towards those channels, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But they also do the three things, like educational, interesting, and entertaining, right? You mentioned the three there. So I used to say, well, you mentioned educational and entertaining. I add interesting in there too, but I guess you could say entertaining and interesting are pretty close together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you got to do something separate, set yourself apart too. So, you know, I was just talking to someone that wanted to start a YouTube channel, and they thought that the niche that they wanted to do was oversaturated, and I was just trying to tell them that you don't have to do what's being done. Do it in your way. Do what's, blue ocean strategy. Do what is missing in that niche, So yeah, there's a lot of guys that like what's it called? The one Twitch streamer that I like a lot. Most of these gamer guys are nerds. They just are. It is what it is. They just play video games all day. This guy looks like he could be on the Jersey Shore, but he plays Fortnite and Call of Duty, and he just has more of that alpha feel, but he's not like an asshole either. He's actually like a really cool guy at the same time. So he just has a totally different energy about him than any of these other gamer guys. And so that's what, and he's not the best player. You know what I mean? But you come there for his personality.
Personality goes a far way.
So he's filling in that missing part of that industry, I think.
Mm-hmm. So I think what you're describing is just the advantages of being a little more innovative. And say you just try to imitate someone else, it's like not only will you not get as far as them, you'll probably get less far, not nearly as far as they did, unless you tinker, unless you try to do something different. And like that's what Apple did, right? They copied the original, what was it? iPod. Mm-hmm. They copied that, and then they innovated it, and then they became what they are today. But then that's how it's done, in my opinion. And then what I also wanted to hear more from you is monetization strategies, because that's something I think most everyone wants to hear more about. So between Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, what are some monetization strategies that you recommend to some of your clients?
So I think that like we were first talking about, it comes down to value. What are you bringing to the table? And now for my clients, I'm talking about other creatives. Other creatives typically are just not good at talking about money.
True.
Most people are not, but especially when I've tried to tell some of my friends that as a filmmaker, as a videographer, as a photographer, don't think of yourself as an artist. Think of yourself as a businessman or businesswoman first. Artist second. Once you start thinking about it as art, then you get emotional, you get personal about your art, and now it just gets weird. Think about value. Think about yourself as a business person. It's a transaction. What are you bringing to the table? Think about it in that respect. Then it'll start to make a lot more sense. And you want to be able to monetize, or it's just a hobby if you're not making any money from doing it. So
you see a lot of people out there trying to be like coaches, like life coaches. Some of them are mindset coaches. Some of them are business coaches. Some are relationship coaches, dating coaches. It's like, I see a lot of them out because I've done coaching before myself. But like you see a lot of coaches, what they end up doing is just coaching other coaches on how to get clients. Yeah. I always equate that to the old who got rich during the California gold rush. Like not the people looking for gold, but the people selling the shovels and owning the saloons and the hotels. And it's like, that's what they're doing. And so, I don't know, what would you recommend for people who are in that coaching sphere where they're like, you know what, I really want to help people somehow, some way. So I'm going to try to help them with X, Y, or Z. Like, do you have any suggestions for them?
Yeah, man, it's tough because, who wants to get coached? Who wants a life coach that's 22 years old? You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with Grant Cardone.
Yep.
So I love Grant, and he was saying, if he was going to have a finance coach or something like that, he's like, this guy better be making billions. He better be making way more money than I make for him to give me, any kind of coaching. So I just think that, you're not even the YouTube channel that I just started. I even feel like sometimes I'm like, man, maybe I should wait another 15 years to start this YouTube channel so I have more, knowledge and information to give, but I'm just going to give from my own personal experience. I'm not going to talk about stuff I don't know about. That's all I can tell you.
I think that's very important to do that. And I think this is like, it's hard to say, but like there's people like Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss's, Gary Vaynerchuk's, And there's a lot of people who want to be in this Tom Bilyeu, the people want to be in this influencer sphere. But the way I see it is we only need so many of them. We really like, but there's other skills that are actually needed. Like we do certainly need nurses. We certainly need doctors. We certainly need accountants. Then all these skills that kind of keep society together. And a lot of people want to go down this, like, because Tony Robbins tells them they can. It's like, well, you can go, you're worth whatever you say you're worth. You're 22 years old and you're a coach, you're worth $2,000 an hour because you say you are. You know your worth, and that's it. And that's around the point where I start to get annoyed with the whole thing, because I think to myself, how does this person think they're worth $2,000 an hour when a doctor who's gone and gotten a doctorate in something is only charging $200 an hour? Like, what makes you think you're 10 times more valuable than a doctor? And it's like, there's a fine line between having a good sense of self-worth and then like extremely unhealthy narcissism and toxic behavior. And I think the Tony Robbinses of the world, they dance on that line back and forth, because in some of the cases, maybe some of these other coaches, like, they don't really know as much as they should. They don't know as much about the world that they claim to know.
They're talking.
They just get this.
Yeah, they're speaking in hypotheticals.
Yeah, they get this belief in themselves, and then they think they can just do whatever without actually having to be practical about it. And I think there's a lot of coaches who might just be better served doing something more practical to help the world, because there can only be so many Tony Robbinses and Tim Ferrisses. There's a finite that are actually needed. Yeah. Like, how many influencers like that do we really need?
Yeah,
I don't know.
For sure. No, definitely. I think if you want to do something in that space of influencing or something like that, really make it around something that you're passionate about. Because in the beginning, you're not going to make any money. You're not going to get any credit for anything that you're doing. It's going to take some time before you even make anything that's actually worth anyone watching. You're not going to be good at video. You know, just the content you're putting out is going to be mediocre, even though if the information might be really good. Just the delivery will suck. But you keep pushing. What's going to push you is because you're passionate about whatever it is that you do. You know, so I think just make content around things you would do you do anyway on your free time.
Yeah, that's what I do.
You know, I love drinking whiskey. Make a YouTube channel taste testing different types of whiskey. Like, just do it around something you actually really enjoy. You do it anyway. The only difference is you have a camera in front of you now. Then it's going to be
I agree with that.
Much easier. Don't go for the money. Don't go for what you think is going to make you quick money. Do what you can actually sustain over a long period of time, because it does take a lot of time to build a momentum and make it something that you want it to be.
Absolutely. Because if anything, all of these things take longer than what I expected. And I see some people try to tell others, oh, it can happen overnight. It can happen much faster than you ever think. And I tell them, no. In my experience, it takes longer than you would ever think. And you really got to persevere, and you really got to be patient. And it reminds me, because Tom Bilyeu was talking about patience as a bad virtue the other day on Instagram. And I was like, what? I was like, I don't agree with you at all on this part. Because he said, yeah, patience screws people over. He goes, turn it into like a month timeline, just a year. Like, I don't know if I agree with that, but
I think it's all context though. What are we talking about?
Yes.
You know? So, you know, I get what he's saying, but I think also, you know what, Jared, like, you got to look at Gary Vee. I love Gary Vee. I love Grant Cardone, Patrick Bet-David. I listen to a bunch of different guys, but especially Gary Vee and Grant Cardone in particular. And I love both of those guys, but sometimes they say things in such extremes that it's kind of hard to like apply to most people's lives, you know? And I think it's what it comes down to is like, you need to be self-aware. You need to have a real, honest, uncomfortable conversation with yourself and say, who am I? Do I have this work ethic? Can I actually do these things? Am I willing to put the work in? Am I willing to, a big thing, Jared, I want to talk about is delayed gratification. And everybody wants things instantly, and it's not real. You have to be able to put that work in before you see a return on it. So it's just having those conversations and understanding that I can't go out on Saturday nights anymore. I'm going to work on this thing that I want to see come to light. You know, so if you only have your weekends, then work on your weekends. Yeah, give yourself a break once a month to go do something you actually want to do. But the other times you better be grinding. You have to set tangible results for yourself. You have to set those goals, or you're just kind of like drifting around and there's no marker to see if you actually got anywhere. So
Yeah, I think the creators that say things are a little more outlandish, I think it's useful in some cases just to get your brain thinking in a different way. So like the try to get it done in a month as opposed to a year, it just opens up your brain to thinking in a new way. And it's not always going to be practical, I don't think, to get it done that way, but it's useful. And like Tom Bilyeu, he said other good things I really did like, such as like if you don't know what your life is going to look like in 5 years, you're already doing it kind of thing. And it's like, well, that's useful because you want to get specific about what you really want to do, what you really want your life to look like. Or, like you said, you're already doing it right now, as in nothing will change unless you do something different. But the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, what's your suggestion to you say you don't like it when people call themselves artists or creators as opposed to business people. You want to get them more in the business mindset. How do you do that for them? Because for a lot of them, I think that's a very difficult thing. They don't, like, there's people that do one or the other. Like some people like really just all into the business. They have no problems asking for a whole slew of money. And then the other side is they feel really uncomfortable when it comes to asking money from anyone. So what would you say to that side of people that are uncomfortable asking for money and on the business side of things?
Yeah, it's definitely a mindset shift. I mean, you think about if all artists were able to think about the art they make or the content they make in a business sense, then musicians wouldn't need managers.
Yes.
They'd be able to just negotiate themselves. Actors, everything, whoever's in that space, would they be able to just negotiate on their own? So it's, if you don't do it, the client's going to negotiate for you if you don't get good at it on your behalf. Or, there's always going to be a middleman. There's going to be some sort of broker. In some instances, some of the deals that we do, we are dealing with a broker on some of the brands we work with on Instagram. It's not even we don't work with the brand directly, but we're still negotiating with that broker. And they'll say, well, all we have is $500 for this campaign. And we're like, well, we're not doing it under $1,500. So take it or leave it, but this is what we'll deliver, blah, blah, blah. And more times than not, I'm always surprised. They're like, okay, fine, we can do $1,500.
Being willing to walk away, I think, is huge in negotiations, right? If you can't walk away, you're going to lose.
Which, as Gary Vee says, don't buy dumb shit. Because if you don't have the money to be able to walk away because you have a $700 car payment, you know what I mean? I don't buy stuff I don't need, so I can walk away from stuff.
Yeah, as Jay-Z says, if you can't buy it twice, you can't afford it. I was like, yeah, I agree.
So true. But going back to it, Jared, it all comes down to, what you want from life. Do you want to make money off of the things you create? You got to get good at talking about money. And you have to be, it's one thing if you're putting something in an art museum or auction, that's all subjective and objective. You know what I mean? It's like, fine, but I'm talking about transactional things that bring value. So, with video, it's pretty simple because it gets eyes on what your business does. So it's very easy for that so I know, like I said, plenty of other people that do video that ask me how to kind of negotiate through stuff, and I just break it down like that. And they do get it and they understand it, and it's a lot easier for them to put on their businessman hat when they meet that client. And then once you're done, you can go back to being the artist. But while you're there,
I think a lot of it's like planning, right? If they have a good plan going into the negotiation, like, oh, I'm going to have this price, he's going to counter with this, I'm going to counter with that. And they just have a plan going in. I'm not going to go below this no matter what. And if you can keep yourself accountable to your own boundaries, I think that part would be amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm knocking myself, killed it.
And that's really
Sorry about that. Had technical difficulties almost. But the other thing I wanted to ask you about, though, is what do you think about platforms such as Patreon or like YouTube Super Chats? Like when a guy's doing a YouTube Live, people donate money a lot to these creators via Super Chats. What do you think of those methods?
Oh man, I was always against Patreon, but I don't know. There's some of them make sense, and I'm not thinking of, none of them are coming to mind right at the moment. But there's some of them where they do something so weird and different and so niche that they probably wouldn't exist without a Patreon.
Right.
Because it's not a big enough thing. Like there's one guy, he does. There's a game called Fallout. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I've heard of it. Yep.
So Fallout 4, this guy goes in and does all of like the back story on every piece of every part of the game. And I'm sure it takes hours to break all this stuff down. And, he's just not going to make the money that you would if he was just probably playing it competitively, because he's doing it from a totally different angle. I mean, he has a pretty good following and stuff like that, but it's like I said, I know playing the game itself, if you don't have an extra 4 hours, it's not even worth playing. It takes so long to do anything in the game.
Wow.
So for him to do all this backstory stuff, I don't know. I kind of get it. Where normally I'd be like, Patreon is kind of like a cop out, like go really get views and make money and stuff like that, because unless that what you're paying for, like what you say, a super chat, stuff like that, unless you're really giving people value, which some people make, so it's hard to judge because I've never signed up for someone's Patreon ever. So if they're really giving you your money's worth, where you feel like you're getting more information or you're being more entertained, or maybe they're giving you more of their personal time, then sure, if it gives you as the person paying for it value and you feel like you got your money's worth, then sure, why not? So I think it depends on the situation.
That makes sense.
Case by case.
I'm also curious your thoughts on just like kind of the direction that you think the economy and the marketing and business is going to be going, especially in light of the pandemic here. You mentioned before about the 40% of small businesses going under in the next 6 months. It's like, what do you see as the future of the marketing world, of social media? Do you have any thoughts on what it's going to look like, or the kind of trends we're going to see?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. The economy never goes back the way it was before these things happen. 2008 didn't, and after this will be another one that's going to change a lot of things. And before we started this, you were talking about the people that have small businesses and to support them, and I think that's great, because you see on the news and on social media, they're like, just support Bob's Pizza Shop. And it's like, guys, there's other small businesses besides restaurants. Just because you go buy a pizza once a week doesn't mean you're propping up the small business economy. There's so many other people that do different things, that need your money as well. So, there's that, which you just don't see it really talked about on, like I said, on the news or social media. It's just go buy food from some place and then everything will be fine. But on the same token, those small businesses that need money, you need to let people know you're in business. No one knows what's going on unless you tell them. So you have to be responsible for your own marketing and your own PR as a small business, and say, hey guys, I know what's going on, but we're still open. This is how we're doing things contact free, blah, blah, blah. So you have to do that too. That's your responsibility as a business owner, to let people know that you're open. But as far as everything else, Jared, I'm trying to think. It's definitely not going to go back. I think a lot of people, not a lot, but I would say a good portion, are going to lose faith once again in getting the safe job. I think they're going to be like, I lost my job again. I lost it in 2008. Now I'm losing it again. Maybe I go start that YouTube channel, And of course, they can't just go quit. They'll probably work a job, but they're going to really start to really take seriously what they're passionate about, because it's like, I did the safe thing and I'm still unemployed again.
Right.
This is bullshit. I'm not doing this again. So, I think there's going to be a lot of that. A lot of people, I think, they probably have had enough time to probably think about their career path and be like, I've been doing this for 5-10 years and Now that I've been on, been not working for the past month, I'm like, I don't know, do I want to do this anymore? It's kind of pressed
Mm-hmm.
pause for a lot of people and giving them some
Sure.
time to reflect. So I think you're going to
I
see a
think
lot of that.
I think a lot of people might kind of just go. Some might go down the creative route, like you said, start a YouTube channel, etc. Others will do just like staples, like, oh, let's just go be a nurse. They'll always have a job. Let's go
Yeah.
be an accountant. They're always going to have. They'll usually have a job, right? And just play the safe route. That could happen too, like in those staple positions only. But I've been hearing people say things are never going to go back to the same way again,
Mm-mm.
and I don't know what exactly that means. What is not actually going to go back to the same? But do you have thoughts on that part too?
Yeah, definitely. I think, at least I hope, man. It's like I was saying, just seeing all these people buy houses after the recession, and it's like they very quickly forgot how bad it was, like really quick, and they're buying expensive cars, houses, things like that. Hey, if you have the cash, man, buy it. If your money's like that, buy it. But if you're financing all this stuff and putting it on credit, it's like, are you crazy? Like, we just had this recession, now we're in this. If you didn't learn after this, man, I don't know what to tell you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because a lot of people are going to lose their home, they're going to lose their car, they're going to lose their business, whatever. And a lot of these businesses over leveraged, and they thought this economy would go forever, so they just put everything on credit. You know what I mean? And like Gold's Gym, how do you go bankrupt with a gym? What's your overhead? You paying the equipment? Like,
Right.
it just sits there. But, a lot of them, who knows what they did with their money? And they thought this would last forever. So it's hard, man. I hate judging people because I know running a business is really hard. So, I don't know what they were doing, but either way, I think a lot of people are going to reevaluate their situation regardless. Maybe they are quarantined in their neighborhood and they're like, you know what? I want to get the hell out of here. I want to move out of this place. And I think it's just kind of waking people up to just kind of live more because you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
And I would love to see that. And just, I think you should question everything. So, and always be, reevaluating your situation and seeing, is this a good fit for me? Don't
I I absolutely agree with that part too. It's like I'd like to see stages of this begin to open again in like a month to 6 weeks ish because I don't think we can last much longer as we are now. And yeah, it's never going to be completely safe to open up. So that's why I think we just got to start doing it in phases and get it out there because the effects of our precautions, I think, are going to be really bad. And the longer it goes, the worse they're going to be. So they've already mentioned things like suicides, overdoses, domestic violence, increased alcohol consumption, molestations, rape, all these kinds of things that are happening because people are stuck. People don't have income. And then in other cases, you can't feed your family. You can't put food on the table. You can't pay for your rent or mortgage. So it's like this house of cards we're playing with, it can only last so much longer. And I think we really got to get to it soon. And I hope all of the governors of all the states, including New York, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, the three where there is the most amount of cases, it's like, yeah, we got to get through this. Like, we got to move forward. We can't just do nothing because I don't see this. I think people are going to stop listening too. Once June, July hits and the weather gets really nice, people are going to say screw it, and they're not going to stay inside. They're not going to, and they probably won't socially distance either. It's like they're just going to get to it.
Yeah, Jared, it's even good people that are in a desperate situation do bad things.
Absolutely.
And it's understandable. I get it, man. It's just there's only so long this is going to be sustainable for that you can not have things open and people not working. And at a certain point, it's almost easy, it's almost better to get the coronavirus than starve to death, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's just it just gets to a certain point where it just doesn't make sense anymore, like you said, to have those precautions. Um, and yeah, just people got to get back to work. And there's ways to do it. So just do it smart, figure it out. And it's horrible that we have this pandemic and this virus and all these things, but regardless, people are going to die. People die from the flu. People are going to die, but this has to go back to work. People have to get back to work. You have to get back to work. There's just no way around
Absolutely.
it. And I think it's also, people got to take care of themselves. You can't overeat. Maybe you should stop smoking. Whatever it is that, you know what I mean, is making you a high risk to something like this, is at least making people think. And, but yeah, people got to work, man. It's just not, it's not sustainable.
Absolutely. I think the bright side, like you said, this has created an opportunity for people to start something like a YouTube channel, start their own little creative project or passion project, like things that are a hobby that, you know what, I want to do this anyway. And that's, like I said before, that's what my YouTube channel really is. I like giving interviews. I like talking about dating, relationships, and other mental health aspects and mindset stuff. So it's a hobby for me. Like, I've made not a single dime from those stuff. But like, I just do it for fun. And maybe one day it might turn into something. But I enjoy doing it. It's one of those little things that gives me fulfillment in life, right? Because there's a lot of things I need to give me fulfillment in life. But just working and just having a job, that's not part of it. It's like, I gotta be doing other things. But I guess before we wrap up here, any other closing thoughts in regards to just overall marketing suggestions, advertising suggestions, or other suggestions for content creators out there? Or just any other thoughts that you wanted to mention that we just didn't get to?
Yeah, I guess, you know, Jared, I think that I really want to see, I'm always writing my Instagram caption after, cause I'm always writing something that's like self-reflective about something that I'm realizing in retrospect after I can't write about an experience because I haven't really had a time for it to digest. So I'm always writing about it, something that happened a year ago. And now how I feel about it once I'm kind of emotionally removed from it, I was able to really assess it.
Right.
And I always end it, not always, but there's certain times where I just want people to know, because I feel like I'm kind of like telling people what to do, and I want them to understand that I'm not trying to give people a hard time. It's that I want people to win. And that's why I'm kind of giving you shit about something. It's because you're better than whatever it is that you're doing. And so if I want to leave with anything, Jared, is that I want people to win. I want people to be doing what makes them happy. I think the world would be a better place if people were doing a job, or not doing a job. I mean, doing that passion project, that YouTube channel, creating something, starting a business, even if it didn't pay a lot of money, at least at first. If you can make enough money to pay all your bills, pay your rent, buy food, but you're doing what you love all day, every day. I think everyone would be more kind and understanding, because even though they're doing what they love, they know it's hard. So right. They would be nicer to each other. And also, you're not stuck at some dumb job. Like, that's your job takes up so much of your time in your life. You think from the time you wake up and you're getting ready for work to the time you get home, that's a lot of time. That's so much time. And people that don't know me, you know, since I've owned my business, they didn't know me when I was young. Like, I've worked all the dumb jobs. Every name a job I work, all the stupid jobs. I've worked all of them. And that's why I know like what people go through. Even some people that went to school for something and then realize it's like they actually have a decent job, but they don't like it. You, that person too, should also just stop. Like,
you hear that a lot, right?
All the time.
I hear that a lot.
And
when I used to do Lyft and Uber, I would hear that all. Talk to executives somewhere, or just like, you know, just a decent, good paying job. But you could just tell that something was missing for them. They weren't quite satisfied. They weren't quite fulfilled. And they just wanted more. And like you were saying before, as long as someone understands you're on their team, like you're supporting them, it's good to like kind of bust some chops a little bit. Because when you care, that's what you do. Like, when you really care about someone, when you really love them, you want them to push through. You're gonna tell them the truth about them, and hopefully they would do the same for you. And it just takes a certain amount of emotional maturity to be able to handle that on the receiving end. It's like, but they're not telling me this because they want to hate me. They're not telling me this because they're trying to condemn me and just criticize and judge, but it's like, no, they want to see what the best side of me win. They want to support the side of me that wants the best for myself. And I mention it that way because there's a lot of people out there who have a big side of them that wants the worst for them. And they kind of act that out. They act out the side that just kind of wants to self-destruct. There are people out there like that.
Yeah.
And so I always make the distinction, like I support the side of you that wants the best for yourself, not the side that wants to self-destruct, or not the side that can't handle any sort of criticisms. And I guess from the criticizers end, I've been that person before too, where people yell at me saying, you're a little too critical, you're too judgmental. So it's my responsibility, I think, to make sure I'm doing it in a more loving, caring way so that you know I'm on your team. Like, I'm not just trying to be a dick. Like, I'm on your team. And maybe I should be a little more responsible / caring or gentle with some of them, depending on who I'm talking to. Another man, maybe not as much as a woman in some cases. But it's like, yeah, you got to be cognizant of how you're coming off to people.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, and even half the time I'm criticizing myself. I'm telling you this is something I did where I could have done it differently, and pretty much don't be me in that situation. So it's not even like I'm judging someone. I'm just saying, if you're doing what I did, don't do it, because this is how it worked out for me. And I don't want that to happen to you, kind of thing. So I give a backstory so they understand where I'm coming from. And you know what I mean? So
that's what they say. Anyone who gives advice is really just talking to their past selves. And it's like, yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. And so it made sense to me when I heard that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that's it, Jared. I want to see people put themselves in more uncomfortable situations on purpose for self-improvement. So maybe that's physically, maybe that's you need to go to the gym, you need to go running, you need to get your body back in shape. But mentally, yeah, put yourself out there, man. If like I said, I did the public speaking on purpose. I knew if I was going to start to generate any real life in person influence, I'm going to have to learn how to public speak, not just do it virtually. So I put myself in that situation and learning how to close the deals with clients, which was really nerve-wracking in the beginning, but it came out of necessity because my girlfriend quit her job and we had about a month to make our bills. And we did that in a month. We closed like 6 deals in 1 month.
That's good.
So it was just going, and I knew in my head how much money we needed. So I knew for each person I had to get a certain amount of money minimum if this was going to work. And we did it, thank God. But that pressure, do you know what I mean? Where if it was just a hobby, maybe I'll go meet with this guy and I'll just get this much money and I won't care about the project that much until I get paid that much. So
it's like the Navy SEALs say, we can always get 20 times more out of ourselves than we think we can. And I found that to be a very useful axiom there, where it's true. It's like, when the pressure is on, people are surprised how much they can actually truly handle and truly get done. And it's like when some people's back up against the wall, that's when they do their best work. That's when they really get it done. But the lesson to take from it is, of course, take the lesson of being up against the wall and take it into your everyday life and say, okay, how do I apply this now that, like, it's not a catastrophe situation, but I've proven to myself I can still do it. I can still do it now in normal times too, and just keep on setting the bar higher.
Without a doubt. So yeah, I think I know at least for me, I do the best under pressure. And when I'm able to set that pressure on purpose, then it's even better. Do you know what I mean? Because it's on my own accord. So it's not something I'm being pushed into. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to do this. It's like, no, I'm going to set this up and do this. And, we made a documentary in a month. This was back in January. There's a city in New Mexico that hired us to do a documentary. And they said we need it literally in 20 days, really. Because it was like I met with them on the 3rd and then they wanted it done by like the 25th. So that was insane. And we got it done, thank God, just shooting and editing for an entire month, every single day. These were like 15-hour days. You know what I mean? Just getting everything done, meeting people, getting all the B-roll, going back and editing it. It was like 6 hours of just conversation, and that's not even the B-roll part, And so then we had to cut that down. I think we got it down to 45 minutes, and then we made.
What was it about?
The
documentary about?
The documentary was about violence and drugs in northern New Mexico.
Oh.
So violence and drugs, and where the drugs, like, where's the mindset come from? Why do people keep going back through this cycle of younger generation to older generation doing first heroin, then meth, and where the violence comes from, and then by the end of it, it was like, what are the possible solutions going forward?
What were the solutions? What was the conclusions that the documentary drew?
It's tough because it's in the culture. So it's not something that's going to be fixed tomorrow or in a year. It's going to take about 10 years of breaking that cycle. And, I think the hardest part is that there's no opportunity out there. And so when you have nothing to lose, you're going to do stupid stuff. But if you have a good job, you're like, listen, I got to go to sleep by 10 o'clock, man. I got to wake up. I have this great job that pays for this nice house I have. But if you don't have anything to lose, sure, I'll go out and rob a 7-Eleven because I have no money. It's that, or I work at Wendy's forever.
Right.
So, so it's lack of opportunity, lack of information, and just breaking that cycle. I think it's getting the youth to understand that there's more to the world than just the city of Espanola. There's other places in the world. You don't have to stay here forever.
Right.
You can leave.
See, I think people will always use drugs, I think. And I think it's kind of like, if you're familiar with Star Wars, it's like the sides of the Force got to balance themselves out. It's like a spiritual attitude to take towards it, but like, there's going to be good, and there's going to be a dark. There's going to be an evil. And no matter what happens in the world, that evil is going to take some sort of form. And in many cases, it's drugs. But I know people say, like, we just want to get rid of drugs completely. And I say to them, it's like, what do you think would take drugs' place if we got rid of all drugs? Because there would most certainly be something. It's just a matter of what that something will be. Is like, would everyone steal instead? Would people go rape instead? I don't know what they would do. Yeah. But there's always going to be some negative. And so that's why my philosophy towards the world is, like, a government should not be controlling too much about what each individual citizen does. Give them the freedom to make the choices for themselves. As I've always said, I think all drugs should be legal. Let everyone make the choices for themselves, because not everyone's. The people who do drugs do not care that it's illegal. Yeah. Right? They're doing it. Yeah. And so I feel like, let them go do it. Try to focus on treatment. And even the message that you just said about, like, what do they have to look forward to? They don't have a good job, house, they're stuck. It's like, well, even people who do have a good house and a good job still do it in some cases. Like, look, Wolf of Wall Street. Like, all the guys rocking and rolling there, they're still having a blast. The only difference is they have money. And money kind of masks the problems in a different way, if you ask me. So absolutely, it just doesn't look as bad. Yeah. But like, when you see someone in like a ghetto of sorts, or like a real slum, it's like, oh no, look what drugs are doing to them here. And just like, you see the effects that drugs create more vividly when someone is poor. When someone's a little more wealthy, I think the problems can get masked. But like, the reason why I said that is because there's always going to be something. Like, there's going to be good parts, there's going to be bad parts, and I think that's just the way of the world. And I think a lot of people get really addicted to trying to help other people. Like, a lot of people who have been addicts, they try to go be a part of the addiction field or advocacy for addiction laws. And I think it's a good thing, but the one truth that I can't ever avoid is, you can't help anyone who doesn't want to help themselves. And so when a lot of people don't want to help themselves, a lot of people just bash their heads up against the wall trying to help someone who doesn't want to help themselves. And like, I try to take a little more hands-off approach and say, hey, when you want to do something different, here it is. I can show you how. I can show you what's worked for me. And until then, though, it's like when you're trying to rescue someone from drowning. It's like, you can't. They might just bring you down with them too. Absolutely. Unless they want to participate in their own rescue.
Some people are just ready when they're ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's got to be a decision that you make. so they got to hit rock bottom or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So I think that, goes back to what you were asking me before about what is it in me that made me want to take chances and, you know what I mean, and put myself out there. I feel like I hit, rock bottom in the sense of I wasn't accomplishing any of the things that I always wanted to accomplish when I was younger. And I wanted to do great things and big things. And I'm like, I'm not doing any of these things right now. I need to take massive action. I need to make a lot of mistakes in a short amount of time, because for every mistake, 10 mistakes, I'm going to have one win. That's going to be a home run. And that'll give me enough momentum to make 10 more mistakes. You know what I mean?
You're failing forward.
So
that was a good way to put it too.
Yeah.
So James, I'm about to run out of juice over here, but James, thank you very much for coming on the show here today. We got a lot of useful tidbits out of you and wisdom, and thank you so much for coming on. And that's it, everyone.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Have a good one, James.
Thank you. You too.